By the 4th century, the once massive Satavahana Empire had collapsed, leaving a power vacuum across the southern Indian peninsula. Into this void stepped the Pallava Dynasty, consolidating a territory called Tondaimandalam and anchoring their rule in the city of Kanchipuram. By the year 600, rule fell to King Mahendravarman I. Unlike the typical warlords of the era, he was a scholar, a musician, and an author who wrote comedic plays. He preferred the arts of peace over the campaigns of expansion. He channeled this scholarly energy into architecture. He commissioned temples carved directly out of solid cliff faces. His inscriptions proudly note that these structures were built entirely without the use of wood, brick, mortar, or metal. Instead of conquering neighboring kingdoms, the Pallavas devoted their resources to hollowing out mountains. They viewed this mastery over geology as the mark of a highly enlightened society. But a state still has borders, and those borders were soon tested by the Chalukya dynasty from the north, commanded by an aggressive expansionist named King Pulakeshin II. Pulakeshin marched south. At the Battle of Pulalur, the Chalukya forces clashed with Mahendravarman's army. The scholar king was violently routed. To buy peace and save his capital, Mahendravarman was forced into a humiliating treaty. The northern half of the Pallava kingdom was ceded to the Chalukyas. The defeat exposed a harsh reality. Carving poetry into a cave wall offers no defense against a marching army. The survival of the Pallava state was now in severe jeopardy. Mahendravarman's son, Narasimhavarman I, inherited this fractured kingdom in 630. He did not share his father's artistic temperament. His chosen title was Mala, which translates to the Great Wrestler. He spent the first 12 years of his reign rebuilding his military capabilities. Then, in 642, he marched his forces north to exact retribution for his father's defeat. He met Pulakeshin II on the battlefield and defeated him across 3 separate engagements. The campaign ended at the Battle of Vatapi, where Pulakeshin was killed and the Chalukya capital was sacked. Returning home victorious, Narasimhavarman assumed a new title, Vatapikonda, the conqueror of Vatapi. The Pallavas had moved from defense to offense. They had successfully dismantled their greatest rival, securing dominance over the southern peninsula. Narasimhavarman then looked beyond the mainland. To help restore a Sinhalese prince to power, he projected Pallava military might across the ocean, dispatching a fleet to successfully invade Sri Lanka. This aggressive geopolitical posture required a physical manifestation. The old method of quietly hollowing out caves no longer matched the scale of their ambition. We see this transition clearly on the coast of Mahabalipuram, in a stone complex known as the Five Rathas. The architects were no longer tunneling into a cliff. They isolated massive, freestanding boulders and carved away the exterior rock to reveal entire, multi-tiered stone chariots. The resulting structures stood on their own. The architecture had become a direct mirror of the Pallava state, autonomous, imposing, and carved forcefully out of the raw earth. As decades passed and the borders stabilized, subsequent Pallava kings looked for ways to leave an even more permanent mark than military victories. They realized they were limited by the size of naturally occurring boulders, so they made one final technological leap. They began quarrying individual stone blocks, transporting them, and building structures from the ground up using mortar. This is the shore temple at Mahabalipuram. It features 2 distinct tiered towers built right on the coastline, demonstrating their new ability to construct massive stone monuments that could withstand the open elements. And the technique reached its peak inland, at the Kailasanathata temple in Kanchipuram. The use of assembled stone blocks allowed for a towering pyramidal spire and a vast complex covered in intricate sculptures. This structural method of assembling large stone blocks laid the groundwork for the Dravidian architectural style. It became the blueprint that all future southern empires, including the Cholas, would use to build their colossal monuments. The borders drawn by Pallava armies have long since vanished, but because they mastered the medium of stone, evolving from the quiet chisel of a scholar to the engineering of an empire, their exact vision remains firmly anchored to the Indian coast today.